Okay, so let's start with today's session. Good evening to all of you. Thank you so much, teachers, for sparing busy time from your schedule and giving us here today, joining us today. So, a warm welcome to all you dedicated educators joining us today. First, start with the introduction. Just a minute. My name is Chiranjeev Dhruv, and I'm an education specialist in Varthana Finance. With years of experience in education sector, I'm honored to be your facilitator today for this teacher certification program, Mastering Instructional Strategies. I'm also joined by my co-facilitator, Ankur. So I will ask Ankur to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ankur Chaturvedi. I'm also working as a senior education specialist in Varthana Finance Limited.
So moving ahead, let me introduce our first topic of the Teacher Certification Program, Season 3, Transforming Assessment, Moving Beyond Traditional Testing. So we will be discussing the details of this topic, including practical examples and methods in the upcoming slides. So first, start with the agenda. We will begin with the introduction and objectives for our session. Then we will shift our focus from testing to alternative assessment, understanding the limitations of traditional methods. Next, we will dive into the practical side of things, learning how to design formative and performance-based assessments. Finally, we will talk about closing the loop, feedback, data, and actions, how to implement those into action plans, how to use the insight we gain to drive student growth. We'll then conclude with the feedback and closing at the end. And now let's look at our objective for today's session. So as we move forward, we have these objectives in our mind for this session. Our goal is to look at how we can move beyond traditional assessments and shift our focus towards more meaningful ways of evaluating student learning. We will be spending time on how to design formative and performance-based tasks that are truly aligned with our learning goals. We also want to explore how to apply assessment strategies that support continuous feedback for our students. We finally will discuss how we can use the insights we gain to analyze student data to guide our instructions, ensuring our teaching meets with the need of every learner. Now let's begin by setting the stage for our session. So we have a ice breaking session a slide here next. So please be cooperative and please participate in this ice breaking activity. So there will be a question, and afterwards you can share your thoughts with emojis and chats here. So the question is, when you announce to your students, we have a test tomorrow, what do you usually notice? What are their reactions, behavior, or expression you usually notice when you ask that we have a test tomorrow? So what do you think? You can use these reactions, like do you see nervousness, anxiousness? Are they neutral? Are they excited? Or is there any mixed reaction? You can put it in the chat box, or you can directly give reactions. Okay, anxiety. Thank you, Mohan. Anxiety. Anybody else? What do you think? Or what do you think that when in your childhood, when you thought about there is a test there is a test tomorrow, so what was your reaction to those tests? If anybody wants to share their thoughts, they can unmute and share. We will really like if anybody can share their thought with related to test particularly. No problem. Okay, so let's okay, yes, somebody has raised hand. Please unmute and please share your thoughts.
Sir, hello, I am Shweta.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, the question is good. Some students are being excited who want really to learn something or want to give their test. So some are excited and some are like looking like nervous. What the teacher will ask tomorrow, and what we will get answer. That some are giving excitement and some are like looking like nervousness.
Yes, yes, definitely. There are both the things. Some are having anxiety or some are nervous how we will perform and how things will be, and some will be really excited to attend the session, attend the test, and perform better to show their results. Right. So thank you, Shweta ma'am, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you. Anybody else who wants to share? Okay. So let's move ahead with our next slides. So thank you again for sharing all the reaction, and thank you, Shweta ma'am, for your thoughts. So it sounds like many of us has notices similar reaction from our students, like anxiety, stress, or focus on memorizing rather than truly understanding. Okay, so only focuses on what is they have memorized. So that's precisely the point we want to make here. Traditional testing, while familiar, often measures what our students can recall under pressure. So they mainly focuses on what they are able to recall or not necessarily what they can do or what they have truly learned. So this brings us to the next topic, which is from testing to alternative assessment. On these slides, we will begin to explore why it is so important to move beyond the traditional methods of testing and embrace new ways to assess learning. So let's start with the definition of traditional testing. So typically, traditional testing refers to standardized test, multiple choice exams, true and false questions, short answer recall, and other methods that primarily assess rote memorization. So they are rote memorizing the things in traditional testing, and factual recall under timed methods. Often high stakes conditions such as summative exams, we usually see that they have to perform to have a good grades or good marks for their whole academic session. So these assessments have been cornerstone for education. So here we can also see with these few graphs. First, we teach our students in the traditional testing, okay, and then they practice whatever the teacher has taught them. The student, they will practice, and here you can see this is a one way or one flow process where teacher teaches and student, they whatever the exercise is given, they learn it and they perform it, but there is no reverse flow of that where they can exchange their thoughts with the teachers. In the next flow, you can see the next task which we give them is exam or test, which normally come after test, and it is the end product we usually see. And at the end, we usually focus on the marks and a grade in the traditional testing. So we start with the teaching, and we only focuses on what is the end result, what how much they have memorized whatever has been taught in the classroom. So there are limitations to traditional testing. That is why we are here to learn more about what is beyond traditional testing. So let's see what are those limitations. So first start with the this limitation, which is narrow focus and recall, not deeper understanding with the whole learning process. So traditional tests often prioritize that what student can remember over what they can understand and analyze or create. For example, a student might memorize dates for a history exam, but can they analyze the social political impact of those events? For example, also the taxation levied on India, what is going on with the whatever US has done. So what do you think? Are they able to understand such kind of scenarios or such kinds of incidents? So in this kind of limitations really uh, narrow down in the traditional test. The second one is limited action feedback. Often students receive a score or later grade on traditional tests, such as A, B, C. It can be anything, or in marks, such as it can be beyond 70%, 80%, or below 50%. So the grade or the marks that doesn't totally show us what how much or actually the student has learned. So there is no feedback what specific concept they have struggled with, how to improve for the next time, for teachers to understand those things. So without a specific actionable feedback, assessment fails to serve its most important purposes, which is guiding the learning. So that is the second limitation. And third one is this is very high stake and high stress, create the high stake environment for the students. The pressures associated with the high stakes test can induce significant anxiety, not just in student but also in teachers. The pressure can lead to the teaching to the test where instructions become narrowly focused on test content rather than fostering genuine concepts or curiosity for learning. Okay, so this is the third limitation. It is only one purpose and also high stake and doesn't create motivation. Fourth one is equity concerns with and also biasness. Traditional tests can unintentionally disadvantages students from diverse background, those with different learning styles or different with learning disabilities. So it creates a kind of biasness. They may not accurately access the knowledge and skills of student who express themselves differently, or who come from a cultural context where the taste format or content might be unfamiliar. So this is the fourth limitation. As you can see, it doesn't have proper feedback, doesn't have proper motivation for moving further, and doesn't focus on like it has a narrow focus. So moving ahead, we'll see a case study from which you can more understand about what we are talking about with that the problems and what the limitation with the traditional test. So here we will see a case study. Please read if you can see in the screen, and also I will read it out for you. So what this case is giving. So in this case, Ria is a bright and curious student in class 6. She asks great questions in class, helps her peers during group experiments, and can clearly explain scientific ideas in her own words. Recently, the class studied states of matter. When the unit ended, the teacher gave a traditional written test with fill in the blanks, definitions, and one word answers. So Ria scored 6 out of 15. She had left several blanks, struggled with spelling, and forgot key terms under pressure. The next day, during an informal discussion, Ria confidently explained how steam turns into water and even gave an example from her kitchen. The teacher was surprised here, and clearly Ria understood the concept, but the test didn't reflect her learning. So as you can see in this case study, we are seeing that Ria is a good student. She helped her classmates. She answers every question in the classroom, but when the time comes for the test, she that doesn't reflect on her test. She doesn't able to answer what is in the fill in the blanks, doesn't able to understand the questions and all. So that is the situation here. So I would like to ask you question related to this case study. I hope that you all have understood the case study. If you have understood, please give me a thumbs up. Then I will start with the question. So related to this case study, the first question is: did the test give a complete picture of Ria's learning? Do you think that this test, which this particular teacher has taken in class 6, has given the complete picture of Ria's learning, how much Ria has learned? So as you can see in the scenario here, teacher has seen that Ria has performed well with the all the questions whenever asked inside the classroom, but she wasn't able to perform in the test. So what do you think? If anybody, you can write in the chat box, or you can unmute and share your thoughts.
Can I?
Yes, yes, sir, sure.
So see, this is an overall learning process where it is not mandated the child must reproduce in the examination. And the learners are very different, have different potential of learning they have. Some may not explore or write it down what exactly the examiner need in the examination due to various reasons. So we cannot conclude examination is only way to evaluate the students learning what they've learned it. They can produce in the real life situation, they may not. Here we have seen in the case study, a student is able to produce in the real life situation. She can explain, she can tell, and she can share her ideas on that. But when it was examination, there were so many factors that she could not come up actually what she supposed to be.
Yes, yes, sir. As you have mentioned that clearly, there was few like many things which she has clearly a good idea about, but because with the exams we can conclude what is the actual learning she might have been. So thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts. So let's move with the second question. So what might have worked better? So what do you think in this situation? What could have been a better assessment, a better plan, or could have been better activity to assess this particular scenario? Yes, yes. Please unmute and share your thoughts.
Yeah, sir. As per me, I think so. Yeah, this can be a overall assessment, we can say, where student can be checked by the various ways of presenting the ideas. Where written exam is not a way, as we go in a formative assessments also, short assessments as it is integrated by these days in universities and colleges and even in the schools as per the NEP, the program is coming up, the short test where students learning can be checked whether they have learnt it in a real life scenario. So by giving some task involving checking the aspects of sharing part, and at the same time creating some scenarios and some situations where they can interpret these ideas. So that can be the other evaluation methods where in a group activities we can give it where they can present themselves. So we can say presentation, group activities, and other modes of evaluation. We can do it in a formative way, not in a summative way.
Sure, sure, sir. As you have already, like you mentioned that other forms of assessment such as activities or any activities which involves collaboration and all, and beyond the pen paper test, we can say that will eventually take us to the results which we want from like whatever the RIA has learned on. So thank you, sir, again for sharing your thoughts. So let's come to the last question. How can we design assessments that show what students know and not just what they can write under pressure? So what do you think, how can we design an assessment which clearly shows that how much a student has learned, not just writing under pressure or for getting grades or getting marks? Anybody, what do you think that what could be the process to make such assessment? Okay, no worries. We will also see how to like move ahead with the designing process in the next slides. It is just the question, and just to reflect on how we can design this assessment. Just keep it in your mind. We will see in the next slides. So in the next slide, we will see what is the traditional from traditional to alternative assessment. Now, how why should we move beyond that? So again, thank you all for your thoughts on the case study on Ria's scenario and her classroom scenario. So in let's see what is the alternative assessment here. An alternative assessment is any method of evaluating student that differs from traditional paper and pencil test. The goal is to get a more complete and authentic picture of students' knowledge and skills. For example, like as sir has previously mentioned about the activities, so such as those activities such as project-based work, portfolios, presentations, or even a simple oral explanation can be done in the alternative assessments. In Ria's story is a perfect example of why this is important. So you can see her traditional written tests, which was mainly main focus on recall and spelling, didn't reflect of her true understanding of states of matter, which we have seen that it was mainly focused on written tests, not what she has learned or whether she has understood the concept of states of matter. It measured a narrow of skills. It was a very narrow down path or process, which clearly doesn't show us how much she has learned. So alternatively, in alternative assessments like project based or presentations, we likely have like shown like how much they have learned by their sharing their thoughts or giving a presentation or making working models, whatever they have learned or they have understood from the concept. So ultimately, the key difference is this: that traditional assessment offer measures what students can learn under pressure, while alternative assessments focuses on what students can do with what they have learned. I hope that till here you understood like why we are focusing on beyond the traditional testing. Yes, traditional testing is also very viable in many scenarios to assess or to complete like in fast-paced syllabuses in very short times and all. But also alternative assessment is mainly focused on such scenarios where we are not able to precisely understood what students have learned. So in the next slide, we will see how like why to shift towards the alternative assessment. We can say that importance of alternative assessment. So also we have see in the Ria's case that traditional tests don't always give us the full picture. Uh, so in the this one, moving to alternative assessment, it is crucial because it focuses on understanding, not just memory. So it not just focusing on only one thing, not in one process. It goes beyond the understanding and the pen paper test. It also reflects real world learning, as also sir was mentioning, to connect with the real world scenarios by asking students to apply their knowledge to authentic tasks. And it also assess real skills like creativity, critical thinking, and collaborations. This approach also helps to reduce student stress and increase motivation by taking the pressure of high stake exams. Furthermore, alternative assessment offer multiple ways to show learning, which supports equity across different learning needs and styles. Most importantly, they provide timely feedback for improvement, and they give richer insights to us as a teacher and our learners, helping us to understand strengths and all growth areas where students can perform better. So these are the main important areas why to shift towards alternative assessments. So till here we have learned about Ria's case, how the traditional testing has been done, and what are the limitations of traditional testing, and why should we move towards alternative assessments. Let's next see how to design formative and performance-based assessment. So here, assessment can be a big topic when we see as a whole thing. It is a broader term, and it is helpful to understand that there are different types of assessments, and each with a specific purposes. So we will let's see how many types of assessment can be like it can be derived. So we have derived in or divided it into three parts. The first one is diagnostic assessment. As term suggests, diagnostic assessment is what we do at the beginning of any unit to see what students have already know. It helps us to understand where to start our teaching and move beyond that. The second one is formative assessment, which we'll again explain in the next slide much better. So formative assessment, in short, happens throughout our lessons or unit. It is the ongoing check-in that helps us to adjust our instructions and gives students immediate feedback. The third one is summative assessment. It's given at the end of unit. It used to evaluate what students have learned. So it is again start with the diagnostic assessment, then formative assessment, then summative assessment. And also the part of formative assessment is performance-based assessment, and we are mainly focusing on these two here for this session. So now you might be wondering why we are focusing specifically on formative and performance based assessment here and in this session. The reason is simple. They are the tools that allow us to move beyond traditional testing. While diagnostic and summative assessment are important, it is the continuous use of formative and performance based tasks that truly enable us to provide ongoing feedback and use data to guide our instructions. So that is why we are mainly focusing on these two assessments under formative assessment, and how we can use it in our classroom and design the assessment. So let's now dive deeper into the how we can design these types of assessment. So let's start with the formative assessment. So formative assessment isn't about giving a final mark. It's about checking how students are learning while they are learning. It is an outgoing, flexible process designed to help both us and our students to adjust in a real time. So let's see in a continuous cycle method how does it reflects. So first, student engages in learning activity. So just please see in this slide we are trying to say that it is a continuous process. So please note it down if you want to note how this process work, and later on we will see how we can make use of it and design formative assessment. So as the first one is to see and to engage students in learning activity in this formative assessment designing process, and we as a teachers gather evidences through small checks and questions and observations or short tasks. So first learning activity, then observation, then we provide immediate actionable feedback according to whatever the observation has been made. So then use this feedback to make improvements in particular task which we have given, and they will improve upon those activity in the activity itself, and the cycle of learning continues at the end. So it is not one time but a constant loop where teaching and learning inform each other. So here at the end, you can see the quote here. It is assessment for learning, not assessment of learning. So the key difference is that formative assessment is assessment for learning, not just assessment of learning. Assessment for learning focuses on improving student understanding as it happens, while assessment of learning only measures what students have learned at the end. So I hope that you have understood, I think, somewhat what we are trying to say, but let's further explain it with the example in the next slide, that how you can use this cycle and these steps to to design a formative assessment. So let's bring this concept of life with a practical example. Imagine we are teaching grade 8 science subject, and about the states of matter. The subject is state of matter, specifically the process of solid turning into liquid. So here the steps and description are given. So in the step you can see learning activity. So in learning activity, engage in learning activity. We want our student to involve in learning activity. We give each group of student a block of ice in this activity and ask them to observe and record what is happening, what are the changes as the ice cube melts. The student can, yes, yes sir, somebody has raised hand. If you want to share something, you can unmute or say, or you can just put in the chat box, because I can see who has raised the hand. Ankur, please, can you look it out? In the
I,
second, in the
I think it's a mistake, Chiranjeev. You can go on.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Nirmal. So in the second step, we gather evidences. While they are working, we as a teachers circulate around the room. We observe their discussions and review their worksheets, noting any misconceptions or areas where they might be confused. In the third step, we provide feedback. We give immediate verbal feedback. We might ask questions like what happening to the water molecules at when the ice is melting, or you can write it down the whenever ice is disappearing, where is ice is disappeared, what is actually happening, where does it go. This helps them to clarify their thinking in real time. The fourth process is student revise and refine. So based on our feedback, student then go back and revise their worksheets, maybe adding more scientific detail or correcting their initial observations. Shows this shows us that they have understood the feedback and are whether they are applying it uh, in right manner or not. And the last one is adjust to the instructions. Once we see that most students have solid grasp of the concept, we can proceed to the next topic on our learning journey. Like we have started with the melting process of ice, then we can talk about in the next session is next activity could be evaporation, how temperature work and make water evaporate. So if we notice that that many are still struggling, we can still provide additional support or reteach that particular concept or particular part of the topic, uh, or make groups for those particular students and teach them accordingly and move ahead with the next topic. So I hope that these examples can like make you understand what we in the formative assessment strategy making process we want to make. So these 5 points, first to learning activity, to identify learning activity, then observation, then feedback, improvement, and at the last, learning that continues with the process. So the next slide is here. Now we have understood all the things which we want to make with the process. So now let's think about a new topic and let's practice on the topic of photosynthesis. I would like to invite you all for participating in this particular activity. So here the topic is for grade 5 science subject. For the photosynthesis is the topic. And imagine you are planning a lesson. How would you apply the 5 steps of formative assessment and strategy into this topic and make strategy according to those 5 steps? So we have given all the 5 steps. What is the learning activity? You can see how would you gather evidences for that understanding during the activity. The third one is what kind of feedback would you give in this particular activity and this particular moment when you see the evidences and when you see the observations with respect to the photosynthesis activity. Fourth, how would you ask students to revise or refine their work based on your feedback? Fifth one is how would you adjust your next lesson based on what you have learned from the responses. So these 5 steps we have given, and you have to give, or you can share your thoughts or share your example or how you can move with this activity in your way. What do you think about it? That how you can make activity based on these steps. Anybody can unmute. They want to share their thoughts, please. Okay, no problem. So moving ahead. So let's. I will give an example here for photosynthesis. Let's see. In the first learning activity, we draw a level of diagram, or we can put take out, like we can use, if it is accessible, that there is a computer or internet or digital board, we can use that, or videos, give them activity. Then we can observe the what they have learned, or what they are speaking, what they are, their thoughts on. Then in the third process, to provide feedback, we can make a group of the students, 5 or 4 students. There could be 3 or 4 groups. We can observe what they are sharing, their thoughts on photosynthesis, what they have learned from the lessons. Then the fourth one is to define and revise. Then while observing, we can give them feedback accordingly. And also in the groups, you can see some might be having thoughts on, yes, some might be having like how the photosynthesis work, what is the process of chlorophyll, and what is the process of sunlight in the process of making energy for the plant. And in the end, you can see at, like in the continuous process, they can move beyond. If some might have been understand, some might have understand like what is the main process of photosynthesis, then they can move beyond the photosynthesis process, which can be chlorophyll or cellular respiration, how to make, how plants make the energy for their consumption. So I hope till here you have understood. We have talked about what is traditional testing, what is alternative assessment, why we should move beyond traditional testing. And we also see Ria's case, how she was struggling with a particular scenario in traditional testing methods. And also with this activity, we have learned that 5 steps of making formative assessment strategies. And with this strategy, this is just a, we can say that a process which, by helping this, having this process, you can make your own formative assessments and activities by keeping these 5 steps under into mind. So now, for the next part of the session, I will invite Ankur to take the session ahead.
Thank you, Chiranjeev. So, as we discussed in the session, the formative assessment and why we have to shift from the pen and paper to a project-based and performance-based assessment. Now we will discuss what is a performance-based assessment. As already in the case study, during the case study session, Rahman sir mentioned the importance of skills in the assessment, which already mentioned in the national education policy, and encourages the teachers and educators to design a session which also evaluate and assess the skills of students, so they can the students will ready for the their future after 12th and after graduation in the 20th century, 21st century competitive environment. So the basically performance based assessment is based on apply their how student apply their knowledge and skills in the real world problem with the help of real world based task, which also promoting and encourages their skills like critical 21st century skills like critical skills, presentation skills and collaborative skills. So, and we conduct this performance-based assessment with the help of designing a rubric. So here is the main stages of the performance-based assessment, how we can design the performance-based assessment for the students. So we can understand the stages with the classroom example, like we can take the example of a lab test in for science subject. So the test is basically to test the purity of water. So the objective is the test the purity of water. So the teacher can define the learning goals. The students follow the procedure. Students how student can design and conduct the chemical test during the lab test procedure. So here is the learning goal is the student can understand the concept and design of the chemical test. And based on this learning goal, the second stage is to design the realistic task. So we can take this exam. Our task is to the teacher communicate the students that you use the filtration method or any particular chemical method to test the purity of water. So here is the realistic task is basically based on the learning goals. So the next stage is to how teacher can access and evaluate the performance of students, also their skills. So based on this realistic task, teacher can design a rubric which based on the a certain particular criteria Like if you talk about the lab test, as I already mentioned, so student can how students have the understanding of the concept. Is students are following the lab procedures or not, and what is their presentation skills, how they perform in the group. So based on a certain criteria, student can design a rubric to evaluate the knowledge and skills of student. And after that, student will perform the test in the classroom environment in front of everybody, and they will note down the points and making their lab report. And student teacher's role there is to just observe the student, how they perform, how they how they is the students are following the procedures or not, are they conceptual knowledge is up to the mark or not. So after that student performance, we can assess their and evaluate their performance based on the rubric that we have designed. So where we assess the students knowledge, skills, their conceptual knowledge of testing, how they follow the conceptual process, how they follow the lab related process. So we can access and evaluate the student performance based on the rubric. And after the assessment and rubric scoring, student as teacher can give feedback to the students, give what they did well, how they follow the lab procedures, the concept, and conduct the test successfully or not, and what are the area of improvement. So here you can see the performance-based assessment is a part of a learning process, and it's like a cycle, which and here is a task is also based on the real world and authentic task, and the learning goals is defined very well. So we use here rubric and design rubric here to under to assess the knowledge as well as the skills, presentation skills, critical skills, and all. There all you can say that it is a holistic kind of assessment for students, which also enhances his learning. So in short, we can say that the performance based assessment is all about how students demonstrate their knowledge with the help of skills, and in the task which is based on the real world situation. So that's why the performance based assessment is very important. Now we will understand the performance based assessment with the example. So here you can see the subject is English, and the topic is story reading and comprehension. So how we can design a performance based assessment based on the five steps that we have discussed. The step one is define the learning goal. So at the end of the assessment, so students will demonstrate their understanding the story, the main idea of the story, the characters, the themes. So based on that, the learning here you can see the learning goal is well defined here. How we can teachers can design a realistic task based on these learning goals. So teachers use the student, organize the student into a group, and ask them to perform a short skits based on the story. So a student perform a drama or skit based on the story. They play the characters, how they convey the meaning, convey the central idea of the story, convey the theme of the story. So we can assess the performance based on the skit. Now based on this realistic task, is teacher design rubrics based on the expression of the students, based on the accuracy of the content. They know the characters very well, they know the traits of the characters, how the character reacts, how the character perform, and the collaboration, how they work in the team environment, how they present themselves in the team environment, how they give their suggestion and opinion in the team environment. So here we can assess the three skills and knowledge of the student with the based on the certain criteria: expression, accuracy of content, and collaboration. And we can give them certain marks here. We can say that we can see that the marks is 4 for expression and 4 for content, accuracy of content, and 4 for collaboration. So after that, the student perform the skit in front of the class. In front of the class means is a type of a realistic task. So in a real world environment, so the student perform, and based on the student performance, uh, student teacher can assess their knowledge and skills with the help of rubric that teacher designed previously, and give the feedback to the students, what they did well and what are the area of improvement there. So students can revisit the story and rectify their mistake and also deepen their understanding. Now we will discuss we take a lot of assessment, and you also discuss the feedback, so we get a lot of insights and data with the help of scoring, quizzes, exams, marks. So how we can use this measurable data with the help of data interpretation and data analysis and turn that insights into a action. So we will discuss firstly the why feedback matters. So as you know, the feedback is one of the most powerful tool for teachers and as well as students, where student can receive their receive timely and specific feedback during the learning process. Here I mentioned that during the learning process, not just the end of it. During the learning, so student can revisit their mistake, understand their area of improvement, and rectify their mistake during the learning process, and which also student allows to make adjustment according to their mistakes, and also enhance their understanding and learning. So that's why the feedback matters the most. So now if you look at the flow of a feedback cycle, so the after instruction means after the any lesson, student attempt to take a task or activity, whether you can say the any quizzes, any exams, or any exit ticket like of activities. So student after this section, you can perform the task. So during the task and activity, teachers observe the students' performance and rectify and give a constructive feedback to them. For example, if you take the example of an essay, students writing the topic is essay, and one student wrote a essay on non-cooperation movement and independence movement at all. So we gave them the feedback, not just your essay is very good, your essay is needs improvement, essay is poor and all. So student didn't understand their mistakes very well. So it's a very type of unclear feedback to the students. If you give them that you didn't use the any well structured essay, any particular vocabulary, there is a no coherence between the first paragraph and the second paragraph. So students understand their mistake and their area of improvement very well. That's why we are uh, saying that the constructive feedback is very important. And after that, so here the student understand their mistakes and area of improvement very well. So they revisit their essay and change their style of writing, add some vocabularies, add some connecting words, and use coherence in the paragraph, add some data, add some certain type of important incidents, so they can rectify their mistakes easily and constructively. And it also enhances their deep learning. So students able to understand their mistakes during the learning process and rectify them, revisit them. So it also deepens their learning. So in short, we can say that the without feedback, assessment becomes just a scoring exercise. If you didn't give the feedback to the student, for example, I just discussed the example of essay. If you just remark the give the remark to the student that the essay is poor, very poor, essay is good, very good, excellent. So student didn't know their mistakes, they didn't know their area of improvement. That's where the constructive feedback comes in. So it becomes a part of a learning process. Here you can see in the third option, the feedback after that, the revision after that, it enhances and deepens learning. So feedback becomes a part of the student's learning process, not the just a measurement of a student's performance. Now we will discuss some of the strategies of continuous feedback. So the first one is self-reflection. So in the self-reflection, you can say, for example, if you take a example of a math activity and the topic is fraction. So if you give them some prompts to the students, like what was easy for you in this lesson, what was tricky, where the student need help, so they can self self-evaluate them, self-reflect their mistakes. They will understand their mistakes very well with based on the certain prompt. So we can use the student self-reflection strategy. The second one is peer feedback checklist. So if students use the structured checklist to give feedback to their classmates, for example, if the topic is write an essay on a certain topic, so we can swap the essay to a peer student and a poor performance student, and give the checklist to the peer that does it essay have an introduction, better introduction, is structured introduction, or are there any important examples or incidents are mentioned or not. So these keep feedback structured and ensure that they just don't say the essay is good, essay is very good, excellent, and all. They give a very constructive feedback to the other student. Now we can see the third one strategy is the teacher conferencing. So it's a one-on-one or a small group conversation where teacher gives verbal feedback and clarify misconception of the student during the learning process. You can take the example in the science agreement. So the teacher walks through the during the learning process, or ask the child, why do you choose this step? You are doing you are going in the right direction or not. So student can rectify their mistake immediately during the process and revisit their process and revision and rectify their mistake. So it's all we use the teacher conferencing. We can use the exit tickets as a continuous feedback strategy. For example, we give a cue prompt to the student at end of the lesson. For example, if you take the example of a history class, ask the students that what the one thing and one fact you learned from today's lesson. Is there any problem you are facing, or so you can next day the teachers are able to address those questions very well in the session, then go to the next chapter or the next lesson. Now we will analyze the case study where based on the applying continuous feedback and importance of continuous feedback during the learning process of a student. So here you can see the Mrs. Mehta entered the class 7 science room with two plants. So one is plant is healthy and one is weak. And she divided students into a group to observe and find the cause of the difference. Why the one plant is healthy and other one is weak. So here the teacher used the project-based method to give the understanding of photosynthesis to the students. So and the teacher observed that the group one noted only color and height. So their understanding of photosynthesis concept is very superficial and a surface level. And in the group one, she observed that the student discussed cause of the sunlight, discuss talk about the water. Means they have some idea about the photosynthesis process, but in the end they have some confusion regarding the reason. So here Mrs. Mehta give the immediate feedback to the students, to the group one student and to the group 2 students, okay, what they are doing did well and what they are doing wrong, what is the area of improvement, what are the mistakes they are taking. So this also student go and revisit their process, revisit their understanding. So here you can see there is a questions for all the participants, and you can type the answer in the chat box, and you can raise your hand and unmute yourself. So based on this case study, according to you, which action shows that this feedback was used for continuous learning? Which action shows, which Mrs. Mehta's action shows the this is the feedback for continuous learning, not for a just a time bound process, just a continuous learning and a part of a student learning journey. Which action shows? You can type the answer in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself. And I need your very active participation in this question, in this activity. One, so some answered one. Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? Anyone? Okay. So here is the correct answer is one. Students corrected their work immediately and continued the task. Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mohan, sir. You're right. So here you said the teacher applied the continuous feedback, and the part of a learning process of a student, not at the end of the lesson, not at the end of the any scientific experiment or lesson. During the process, she corrected the students, gave the constructive feedback, and the second question is, at what point Did Mrs. Mehta give feedback to her student? At what point? So the one is after collecting their final answer during the activity while student was working and at the end of the chapter. You can type the responses in your chat box. No, ma'am. We are talking about the continuous feedback, and it's very important. The continuous feedback should be in the meantime of the any chapter or lesson or learning process. Yeah, Monster answer is B. During the activity while students were working, so student can rectify their mistake immediately and learn and restructure their their activity or their conceptual knowledge immediately. Thank you, ma'am. Now we will discuss about why analyzing data or data is important for feedback we get. The data is important for the data turning into action. So as we already know that we continuously collect data and feedback from the students with the help of quizzes, exams, assessments, and some data is very in a miserable form. For example, marks, student get the certain marks. If you use the performance based assessment, so student get the scoring based on the rubric. So how we can analyze the this data we are receiving from the students. So the purpose of data analysis is to identify the learning gaps where the students are struggling, what the student need, what the student concept needs, any extra support. So based on this, we can plan and targeted plan for the particular student. We can use remediation, we can use extra class. We can go and revisit and reteach the chapter again. And based on this, we can personalize the learning pathway for a particular student, whether maybe some is through some small group activity or instruction that we discuss in the performance based assessment. Students need any peer support or any remedial support, so we can plan action based on the data. So now how we turn the data into action. So we discuss the purpose of data analysis and how we can turn the data and data insights into a plan of action. So as we already know, we collect a lot of data and data and insights from the students with the help of assessment and patterns and quizzes and assignments, and we see the some type of pattern and scores and the notes we collected. We know the key 50% student scores 9 out of 10, 10% student scores 10 out of 10. So we understand the pattern of the class, the learning pattern of the class very well. So how we can change this data and miserable data into interpretation. So here is the most important part is the interpretation. How teacher can interpret and analyze the data very well. What does this data tell me? If, for example, if you take the example that 90% students are, scoring 50% below 50%. So here we can, revisit and reteach the lessons again, reteach the chapter again, or we have to use any group activity or any other kind activity to enhance the students learning, so we can use that based on the interpretation. And we also know the what are the gaps there. For example, 50 if you take an example of any subject, if you see the pattern and see the scores, so we can easily understand the learning gaps of the students, and based on that we can turn the interpretation or analysis of the data into action. So we can reteach the lesson if the students perform very poor in the assessment or exam. We can enrich the teaching learning method more with the use of TLNs, with the use of use of any digital educational method. We can conduct a group activity with the students so they can understand the concept very well. We can assign a practice. We can create or design a short practice sheet for the students so they can understand the concept very well. So now we'll discuss a classroom example of how we can convert the data into a plan of action. So here the subject is mathematics and the chapter is factors and multiples. So the assessment result is out of 30 students, 12 students were unable to correctly identify prime numbers. We can see the pattern here. 12 students were unable to correctly identify prime numbers. 12 students score very low marks in the assessment. So how we can interpret this assessment result? That these 12 students need additional support or any remedial support or any any peer support with prime factorization before moving to the next topic. Firstly, we understand this 12 student situation and learning level, and we modify our teaching styles with the using the additional support, using the group task and activity. So after that we can move to the next topic. So we interpret this data here. The action plan will be small group or mini lessons for those 12 students, peer tutoring, and the practice worksheet for reinforcement. And after that, we can go to the teacher can move to the next topic or next lesson. So now here is a short case study based on the data, how we convert the data into action. And here you can see the subject is English reading comprehension, and after a short passage and 5 comprehension questions, the teacher analyzes the result. Is there the result of any quiz or any kind of exam, any kind of assessment? So here is the data. So identifying the main data. So 55% students incorrect and are unable to identify the main idea of the short passage or a comprehension. Vocabulary in the context, 50% are incorrect in the vocabulary in context, and 20% are incorrect in finding supporting details. So how we can interpret this data, and what action should be, we can personalize the plan of action based on this insight. So you can see that here is a four option. So which option is the correct option according to the insights of this uh, data? Which option is correct according to you? You can type in the chat box. The first one is move to the next story. Since the most student answered the question correctly, give an enrichment activity or vocabulary for the whole class, teach strategy for identifying the main idea in the text, or ask a student to reread the passage silently or their own without guidance. So here we can see the answer is B. Thank you, ma'am. So you can see the 50% of the students are unable to identify the main idea of the short passage. So here we teach this strategy for identifying the main idea in the class. We can go, teachers should go back to the lesson and reteach the lesson to the student, understand what the students are facing, what challenges they are facing. So so teachers can use some of the group activities or some kind of other performance based activities to enhance their learning, because here the data clearly shows that 55% is means more than half of the class. We can't go to the next lesson immediately. We have to reteach this lesson firstly, then we go to the next lesson. So here you can see here is a case study which is just want to check your understanding of this session. So a Ria, curious class 6 student, eagerly explained scientific idea in the class, gave real life examples, but in the end of the unit test, which consists of fill in the blanks, one word answers, she scored just 6 out of 15 due to the spelling error and pressure. But the next day, in a informal discussion with the teacher, she confidently described evaporation and condensation with kitchen example. Here you can see the students describe the evaporation and condensation with the real life example. It means their understanding of the concept is very good, and the test failed to capture her true understanding. As the Rahman sir already mentioned during the first case study during the session, the traditional tests are failed to capture the skills and performance of the student. Is the traditional test also only focused on the scoring part, the knowledge part. So here is the question: which type of assessment would we have better capture Ria's understanding? So I have received some of the example, some of the responses. C. Okay. No. Here you can see that the C is not a correct answer. Here you can see the Ria is unable to score the score in the unit test, which consists in the blanks one word situation. But she's confidently described evaporation condition with the kitchen example. So we have already discussed in the performance based assessment. We have to capture the students' knowledge and also students' skills, where they're performing their 21st century skills, presentation skills, critical skills, or collaborative skills. So we can use here the performance task with the rubric. And the second question is, if you were Ria's teacher, what change would you make? What change would you make? Here you can see the students struggle with the spelling errors and pressure. So we can also create any oral questionnaire or oral questioning, any task which consists of spelling error sheets and a practice exercise to address this situation. Now we summarize this session. What we are initially we are discussing that traditional testing, and why there is a shift required from traditional testing to the modern testing and assessment methods. From marks to feedback, we understand that the feedback is not the process of at the end of the any type of exam or quiz. It's a continuous process, and we can give constructive feedback to the students in the during the lesson, or from end of the unit to the during learning. And from data collection, how we convert the marks and scores we get from the quizzes and assessment, and with the help of data insights, how we can turn this measurable insight into a action. So here is the, as all Chiranjeev already mentioned in the beginning of the session, the goal is to move from the assessment of learning, not the assessment, uh, to assessment for and as learning. Now we just use the assessment with the help of feedback during the learning process of the student, not at the end of the any chapter, not the end of any unit, or not the end of any exam. Session will be on 6th September, and the topic is scaffolding complex learning. We will discuss the scaffolding is its strategies, and some of the examples how we develop a scaffold lesson plan for different subjects: science, English, mathematics, and also. So we will discuss these topics in the next session, and hopefully you all be able to join the next session as well. So thank you everyone. Thank you all